hold on, wait for me. I'm trying to retweet the link for Twitter. This is what happens, people, when you try to get old people involved with technology.
We are technically old, although we don't look it, we don't feel it. And I just ordered a cold plunge tub, so I thought
you got to tell me more about that.
Yeah.
Start. So what kind did you get? You know, don't say it because
if they want to. I'm not going to say the name. It's one that's like it's collapsible, but it's actually super sturdy. I haven't picked a compressor yet, and it's still too hot here to just like go out and buy 80 bags of ice and chill it.
No.
But I'll start getting used to 60-degree water and go from there.
That's
that's the top. I want to put it in the sun, and we've got a grassy backyard for the dog. So I have a guy coming to put in a little patio just for this and the compressor. So we'll see how it goes.
So for you people catching up, who's this your first time watching, I've been trying to convince Bobby to do cold plunge, particularly when you live in Southwest Florida. I think living at thermoneutrality and not challenging your body with cold every once in a while is bad for your mitochondria, bad for your metabolism. It's bad for a lot of things. And Bobby has listened. So we are going to be live tweeting his first. No, we're not. We're not going to be live tweeting. Anyway,
I'll put out one of those old school bathing suits with the Dago tee on top of it attached to the trunks.
That's what we're going to do, right?
Yeah.
Welcome to Tradiers, the Trader's Edge. I'm Jim Iuorio coming to you from Chicago. As we said, that's Bob Iaccino coming to you from Southwest Florida. We have the perfect guest on today because CPI number came in a little weak. You saw the 2.8 read, right?
Yeah.
It was about gasoline was part of it, right?
Gasoline was part of it. It was gasoline and airfare, which is gas related.
So it's a perfect guest we have on right now, another Southwest Florida resident who is the chief economist for Ninja Trader. And she is Tracy Schuchart, one of our favorites, one of our friends. Let's bring her in. So Tracy, this show's going to all just be about cold plunge. You ever done it or no?
No, I'm not that brave. I'm not that good. I love a good sauna, but no, I will pass on the cold plunge.
I love a sauna too. I go in the saunas in the morning, and I think from supposedly the research I've done, I'm not a doctor, but damn, you guys know who are listening that I think I'm smarter than everybody else on the planet. So just go with that. So supposedly from the mitochondria, the heat convinces mitochondria that it needs to protect itself and to build barriers, and the cold releases the energy in the mitochondria to keep you warm. So a balance of the two is a pretty good thing. So I think sauna is very good on its own. I just like cold plunge too. Anyway, so the move, you're now living in Southwest Florida. Are you happy?
I know. So, I literally, this just happened this week, so I really haven't had a chance to go out and explore, but, I hear that, Bobby has hit cold plunge, so he lives not that far from me now, so I just might show up.
I'll be driving.
You have a cold plunge too.
I'll be driving inside of 2 hours to meet. We were not going to say specifically how long, but inside of 2 hours to meet Tracy for a drink on Friday. Tony Nash just said cold plunge again with a laughing face.
Yeah, cold plunge again, Tony.
I love Tony.
Oh, Tony's the best. Tony's the absolute best.
Okay, so let's actually there's a lot of market stuff I want to talk about too, because I thought today was pretty fascinating with the CPI coming out. So you guys saw, let's start with stocks. And we're going to get to energy because we have Bobby and Tracy on here. Start with stocks. Stocks rallied 70 handles right off the 2.8. Then all of a sudden lost that all and we're down like 30 or 40, like 20 minutes later. And then all of a sudden finished the day stronger. Here was my interpretation of that. And Tracy, I want to get your opinion too. The number comes out. Okay, the Fed's free to ease, 2.8, whatever. So stocks shoot higher. Then people are like, well, shit, we've been waiting for rallies to sell since this problem with the stock started 3 weeks ago. So people are selling, which to me means the baton is kind of passed from a fundamental reason why the stocks are moving lower to now it's just market positioning and reassessment of risk, which ends when it ends. What are your thoughts? The stock market plunge over?
I don't think so necessarily. I think a lot of this has to do with, if we look at sentiment as well as CTA positioning, if we're looking at the futures market in general, yes, and QYM, everybody's kind of in this defensive mode right now. And we're seeing a lot of liquidity drain from these markets because there's a lot of insecurity due to tariffs, et cetera. And so I don't think we are at that point where I feel like we had a capitulation yet.
No, neither do I. And even like some of the mornings when we come in where stocks are higher, and which, by the way, we come in a lot of mornings when stocks are higher, and then they get the crap beaten out of them for the rest of the day. So even the mornings when we come in and stocks are higher. So things that I consider defensive, like gold, silver, some of the metals, copper, are still usually outperforming even in the morning. To me, that's a signal that the stocks aren't ready to take it higher yet, right?
Yeah, and I think there's just too much uncertainty with these tariffs, because every other day there's a different message. We're going to have 25% tariffs on Canada. No, we're going to have 50 because they said that we're going to have 25% tariffs on energy exports to the United States. And there's too many headlines going on. And this is not something that we're not used to. I mean, this literally happened in the first Trump term. And so you would think that markets would learn, but I think that it's just too much uncertainty out there. And again, I just feel like we haven't hit that capitulation point.
Well, I really agree with you. And I think what you said that's key there is that you thought the markets would have learned and they haven't. Right. And that brings me to my question for you, because when I look at this, the main difference between the Trump presidency now and in 2016 is the amount of times, I believe in the first 50 days, he tweeted about the stock market about 68 times. And he hasn't tweeted once that I'm aware of about the stock market. Plus, his Treasury Secretary is talking yields. Now, yields rose today. So I think that that's the kind of thing that they see as a negative as opposed to the stock market. Do you agree or disagree?
Me, I agree. Well, I think what we have seen is that not only has Trump not talked about, I want stocks higher, he basically has said, we're going to have a little bit more pain. Bessent said, we're going to have a little bit more pain. I mean, this whole administration is basically said, we're going to have some more pain. So to me, that says they're not watching the stock market like they did initially in his first term. And so if that is not their priority, then you get us to where we are today, where, there's just uncertainty, and perhaps they will allow us to get into a recession for kind of a short-term pain, long-term gain strategy.
I'm gonna, if I could, show a chart, and it's going to take a minute for me to get it up there. Unfortunately, because I'm terrible at this, and I do this.
No, it's quite all right. I want to mention something about what you guys were saying while you're getting the chart up, if that's okay. And either of you can comment on it. The chart's up, but it was going to be a good one. It wasn't just wasting time.
Go ahead. Let's do it before
okay, so yields rally. We get better than expected inflation data today, and yields on the long end go higher. It took me a long time to kind of figure out the puzzle, which I think is yields. I mean, inflation's down a little bit, allows the Fed to eventually ease, even though even yields on the short end went higher, but it makes the market more confident that the Fed can ease like they want to. So stocks go higher. So it kind of reverses the sell stocks, buy bonds trade. So you're selling bonds and buying stocks just for today. And that's the reason I think that yields went higher, which is somewhat paradoxical considering we saw less inflation. So that's normally, less inflation, you'd want to be in bonds because inflation is death for bonds, but they got out of bonds. That puzzle, is that the right puzzle? Anyone? Tracy?
Well, I'll tell you what I think. I think that inflation was not low enough. And when you looked at the breakdown of inflation, being gasoline and airfares is what basically took the CPI down, and shelter costs rose. I think the bond market is smarter than the stock market. I mean, that's basically what it comes down to. And that's part of the reason that I'm putting up this chart, right? In this particular chart, we have a death cross, right? Which is right here. It's the 200 and the 50 have crossed lower. Now, death crosses suck, quite frankly. They don't do real well. But when they do well, they rally up into the area of the cross, and then they fall from there. So to Tracy's point about it maybe not being over, maybe not being the capitulation, I couldn't agree more. We have a rally in the Qs today, but look at the volume, sort of declining, right?
Yeah.
And if we get a rally up into this area, we'll call it an area, not a hard stop level. Again, this is the cues. If we get a rally up into this area and we turn lower from there, that will be the death cross playing out, not just sell-offs from the crossing right here. Because as you can see, the cross didn't happen until all of this sell-off happened. You don't get short the second that a death cross happens if you're the kind of person who plays it. Full disclosure, it's a terrible strategy. So Tracy, can you see a rally back that doesn't really have legs to it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you always can. And I just want to go back to the CPI number today. What I thought, people should realize is that generally January tends to be hot. It came in, and it did come in hot just last January 2025, right? And so part of this is that I think that, February came in line, a little bit cold, like that wasn't beyond expectation. And so I think that's why markets didn't react more than maybe you would have anticipated them coming in with sort of a cooler number.
Yeah. And we were expecting 2.9, it came at 2.8. So realistically, this whole conversation, we're talking about, 1/10. It's really could be noise. I think something that's even more interesting to me is that trueflation, which I think that those guys have an interesting way of collecting data, and it's different than the way the government does. And they're already down to 1.35. And I can't remember what their methodology is. But anyway, so to me, there is a chance right now that we're in a disinflationary period if you start looking at all the metrics. And I know which goes against what Bobby and I thought. And I'm not ready to change that opinion yet of persistent inflation, but there are things that are starting to knock down that opinion on me. But let's move to crude, because crude numbers, we had EIA numbers today. Is that why we rallied today, by the way?
No, I don't think that's why we rallied today. I think we've been kind of basing down here. I think 65 is a scary number for people because that's average break even for U.S. shale. Some basins are higher, some basins are less, but let's just take the average at 65. And you'll notice at that 65 area, you start to see some buyers come into the market, because what we're going to see if we hold below 65, forget about 50 that Trump wants or the Trump administration wants, you're going to see production come offline rather quickly if those kind of levels hold. So it seems like they've been generally buying in this area. In addition, we have a 14-year low in longs. I mean, this market sentiment is shit. So can I say that?
You can definitely say shit. Yeah.
Yes, you can.
It's just shit right now. And so, I kind of posted something the other day. I said, I kind of like these odds, at least for a bounce, because when, you're at the lows, market sentiment is at the lows, you hit a level that's really important for U.S. shale producers. I mean, seems to me like, wasn't, I kind of like the odds on at least a bounce. I'm not, saying any massive move. But
can I ask a question then to both of you guys? So Trump wants the producers to produce more, but he also wants, the price to go down. What can he do to make them produce, to encourage them to produce more at $60 a barrel? Can he lower regulations? Can he provide carrots for that? Or what do you guys think? Start with you, Tracy, but then Bob, I want to hear yours on that too.
Well, I think, and I've long said there's not a lot he can do to make them produce. And Sarah Week is this week. There have been a lot of major producers that have come out and made statements on this. And I think, outside of literally subsidizing the industry, I don't think you're going to be able to, give them incentive to want to produce more, because we've been down this road too many times. Investors have gotten burned too many times. Nobody's around anymore. Sentiment is bad. So if you want to subsidize them, like the government's been subsidizing green energy policies, perhaps, yes, for sure.
Bobby?
Yeah, the short answer is nothing. I mean, they can take a substantial amount of regulations off, but the regulatory environment doesn't cut the cost of exploration and drilling. It just makes it easier for them to find spots they want to do that in. You could potentially build more refineries, potentially build more pipelines, but it's still doesn't lower the cost of fracking in any way, shape, or form. And it takes years to get that stuff done. We all have to keep in mind that Trump has 2 years. So, and actually it brings me to a question for Tracy. Do you think, so OPEC I think it was last week, might've been earlier this week, announced that they're going to start getting rid of the voluntary production cuts and allowing people to just kind of cut whenever they want, or I'm sorry, produce whatever level they want. Do you think that was Trump effect, or do you think it won't happen?
No, that is not exactly what happened at all. What they said is back in December, they decided that in Q1 or Q2, sorry, they would, actually it was before that, they put it off to Q2 in December. It was the September meeting where they said, at the beginning of the year, 2025, we're going to start tapering voluntary cuts. Right. In December of 2024, what they said is, we're going to move this out to Q2 in April. And so what we're seeing right now is 138,000 barrels per day, which is nothing, right? Obviously, they think the market knows this. They also came out with a statement after that that literally said, if this is too much for the market to handle, which we don't believe that it is, we're totally willing to scale this back and, stop additional production. And you also have to realize what's happening elsewhere in the world. We just, Trump just revoked CBX's license in Venezuela, and they were exporting 240,000 barrels per day. So, 138 addition, 240 minus, as well as other problems that we're seeing in countries like Nigeria and Libya right now, production-wise.
So that's a net loss of about 102,000 barrels a day, which again isn't much.
No, it's not. But I mean, OPEC has said we are going to do what we can to make sure that we do things according to what market wants, what the market involves. And so if they think that it's warranted for 138,000 barrels per day, perhaps they are correct, given what's being taken off the market today. And looking at the fact that globally, we're at all-time lows in oil stocks, regardless of the illegal stuff that's being shipped from Iran, Venezuela, and Russia. We're still globally well below the 5-year average, at all-time lows in many of these areas. And so I don't think that this is a consideration that people are like freaking out about that's worth this hysteria right now.
So let me ask a question that came into the comments here from Tim, who, by the way, without saying where he's from, he's also a neighbor of yours. If Trump brokers a deal with Russia and Ukraine, will Russian oil return to developed countries? Will that move oil price substantially? Now, you already said there's been a lot going out there anyway.
Well, there's already got a lot out there anyway. If they do remove sanctions, and we do see some Western countries, which have already been buying Russian oil anyway, you have to realize that they're still in an OPEC plus deal. So they're still subject to quotas. So it's not like they're just going to flood the market. They still have quotas that they've agreed to, that they've generally held to. And so I don't think just because sanctions may be lifted, that means that suddenly all of this Russian oil is going to flood the market. It's going to be on the actual market instead of the black market now.
Right. Luis, you want to put up the banner? Take a quick time out. You want to put up the banner for the summit? I think people who are going to be watching are going to be very interested in that. This is about the future's edge, the future of trading summer. So be part of this Tradier Option Summit. This is an amazing event. You can register for free. Just click on that link right there. It is, what is the 4th month? That's April 9th, 2025. We expect you guys to be there. It's going to be a ton of fun. Thank you. Back to my question, which is, so if you don't, you're saying that you don't think a ceasefire is going to bring down the price of oil very much. It sounds to me like you think that oil right now is kind of plumbing the bottom of the range. And if you had a gun to your head right now and needed to make a trade, you'd rather be long than short? Or am I reading too much into your answers?
No, I'd rather be long than short, but I want people to realize, like, I think we're stuck in a range. I don't think oil is going to $90. I don't think oil is going to $40. I think we're stuck in a range, a happy range. You know, if we stay between 70 and $80, a little bit less for WTI, say 65, 75 for WTI, 70, 80 for Brent, you know, that's kind of a happy range where oil companies are making money. Yes, some countries, particularly in the Middle East, that range for Brent might not be entirely in their budget, but they'll still do well, right? And so, I think just economically speaking, if we look at the world, you don't want $100 oil. That's going to kill emerging markets. That's going to kill, I mean, and then you just have oil volatility even higher because, you know, you have these oil spikes that brings down the economy, that slows global economies. People, especially oil producing nations, can't service their debt anymore. And so oil might be a boring trade here.
Okay.
Which is fine. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I actually have sell orders above. I'll use the WTI futures as the example, 69.70, 70.50, and then 71.25. I have 3 sell orders up there just waiting, and I've got to stop above, like, it's about, I don't want to tell everybody, it's about 73.40 or so, somewhere in that range for the whole thing, because I think that's what it would take for us to actually break back out. But I can't think of a reason why that would happen. I really can't, unless it's geopolitical. I really can't think of a reason why that would happen, which actually brings me to my question. RBOB seems a little bit stronger. For those of you that don't know, RBOB is basically gasoline futures. What do you see there?
Well, I think the problem therein lies possible 10% tariffs on Canadian oil imports. And so I think that's why we're seeing kind of a stronger RBOB market, because of the flows. You know, we have particularly the Northeast, they buy from the St. John Canadian refinery, right? And then in the US, we import Canadian crude and we refine it, and then we export it elsewhere and back to Canada. And so these tariffs are actually, I think, a bit more harsh for the product market than it is the actual crude oil market. I think the crude oil market, producers can kind of swallow that. I think when it comes to the fuel markets, it's going to be a problem for particular areas in the United States.
I have a question, but first I want to read a comment from Widge, who's a regular viewer. So is Tim, by the way. But Widge says, saw 275 at the pump, Pennsylvania, last night for the first time since Q1 of 2021. This is usually when gasoline prices are ripping. If we're range bound here, I think that's a good situation. Boring is good. Just a comment, not a question. But I have a question. Have you ever looked into energy prices direct relationship in terms of its actual effect on inflation? I'm not asking for specifics, because Jimmy brought up a theory to me about 2 years ago. He said that he thinks that lower gas prices could actually be a tiny bit of a tailwind to consumer spending. And I can see that argument, but trying to find the proper way to look into it, as opposed to the effect of energy directly on prices and the effect of consumers having a little bit more disposable income. Have you ever looked at that or have any sort of opinion on it?
Yeah, and I absolutely agree with Jimmy on that standpoint, especially when you're looking at harder economic times. If you have lower energy prices, then we generally tend to see, at least as far as U.S. consumption is concerned, is then that's when you have people, they take less vacations by airplane, they take more driving vacations because, you know, gas prices are lower. And so they may save on gas and they can use that for eating out, or they may have a little bit more discretionary spending. So I can definitely see that argument. And I definitely agree with Jimmy on that point.
I like to hear that. I like anytime you can agree with Jimmy. Luis, why don't you put up the banner for the options Tradier Trader Pro? Because this is something, by the way, I should be a pitch man. So listen to how professionally I make this pitch. And then anyone out there with products out there, just call me. That Billy Mays guy, whatever, I think he made a shit ton pitching things. But anyway, this exclusive offer for our viewers to have 3 months free of the Tradier Pro options platform. We've had options gurus on the show who, when we brought it up, they're like, oh, wow, this podcast is affiliated with Tradier. I love that platform. It's the only platform I'd use to trade options. This to you is free for 3 months. Please click on the banner. Please sign up or scan the code. That's what you're supposed to do. Scan the code and hire me to pitch your products. This is Billy Mays. Anyway, Bobby.
Jimmy, no, before you go on, I wanted people to know that you should just sign up anyway, because they have a demo walkthrough. It's a workshop confirmation going on Tuesday, March 18th. So you guys should check that out if you get a chance to sign up for that free thing. The QR code was up there. You can just
you can just tap the QR code.
The thing.
Oh, by the way, you're one to lecture me about technology when you couldn't figure out what room to be in, what studio to be in for the show.
I couldn't figure it out.
So yeah. So let's back. Bobby, your next question.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, I want to not shift off of energy in general, but do you see anything in the current administration's platform? Because I'm waiting, and I haven't seen it yet, but I'm waiting for Trump to take credit for this. What have we had? A 12% drop in WTI. And I'm waiting for Trump to take credit for it, and I haven't seen it yet.
And can I add to that question too? And is there anything that he actually could take credit for? Go.
Yeah, and it's been I'm seeing 15.4% close to close on WTI futures. So is there anything he's done so far that you can take credit for? Maybe slowing the economy?
No, I mean, he's talked it down by saying drill, baby, drill. But if we really look at the energy scenario and we look at that 9-point plan that Chris Wright, our new U.S. Energy Secretary, put forth, there was nothing about drill, baby, drill there. I think that has propelled some sort of negative sentiment towards crude oil prices as far as market participants are concerned. But has he done anything? No. I mean, no.
Well, the other day, Jimmy was taking credit for it, and they have a lot of.
I was taking credit for it. I do that. Yeah, if nobody else will, I'll take that credit. Just scoop it on over. All right. Let's move over to uranium real quick. We talked about, Bobby and I in the Tradier rundown, we talked about silver and copper and the electric world we're moving towards. Uranium has had a difficult time. And as you know, because you directed me into how to make the trade and what I should be buying, which, by the way, has done very well compared to the underlying uranium. But why hasn't that really taken off? Why is uranium kind of in the mud?
I think that was a instance of, we had kind of a parabolic market for a year. Right, we went from like 0 to 60. Well, sorry, I mean I'm using a car term, not the actual price. For a year, so we had a parabolic market. Parabolic markets always like to come back down. That's just how markets work in general. And I think that as long as we kind of stay in this area, I think we will see a bounce again, because I think that we're still seeing more and more countries, especially in the West, kind of decide that, maybe it was a bad idea to shut down all our nuclear plants in the middle of a energy emergency. But, so I think that we are seeing a market sentiment change. Again, I go back to Chris Wright, who, that's part of one of his pillars that he's looking to go for. He's always been an advocate of nuclear. He really wants the United States to invest in this technology and streamline permitting and get our nuclear energy further advanced. And so I think it's just a matter of time. Again, I think this retrace in uranium was more technical than anything else, just because of the strong move up and generally what we see.
Bobby, before I get you in, so just to put in perspective for you guys watching too, if China and Russia wants to build a nuclear plant, it usually takes about 4 years from when the idea is hatched till they have it operational. In our country, it takes 15 years. We have just loads and loads of regulatory red tape to cut through. I am not certain how much of that regulatory red tape is centered around the federal government and how much of it is stupid ass states like Illinois, which oddly uses quite a bit of nuclear power for being the blue state that it is. But now I feel that the regulations are a mile high. Is there a plan to cut through that regulation? Do either of you know? Start with Tracy.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that they've been talking about is sort of streamlining permitting, getting rid of some of these regulations, not bad regulations, but we've been over-regulated in this industry. And I also think that we need to point out technologies such as SMRs, which are not commercially viable right now. And these are small modular reactors, right, that are kind of like, I want to call them like fabricated homes, right, where you can just stack them on top of each other and make a bigger reactor depending on your need, kind of like Legos, right?
Yeah. I want one. I never liked Legos, but I want a small modular nuclear reactor.
Right? I love Legos.
Even though this technology is not commercially viable, what the DOE has said is that we want to spend a lot of money giving grants to companies to help move forward this kind of industrialization of SMRs, in other words.
So before I answer, Jimmy, I wanted to, well, let me answer you first. Basically on Inauguration Day, Trump signed an executive order that was called Unleashing American Energy, which basically commanded the agencies to review and reduce burdens on nuclear energy. Now, I don't know if any of them did it. You know, we have this sort of quiet quitting going on in all the different agencies. And then in theory, declaring the energy emergency, which he also did by executive order on the 20th, should also automatically like facilitate uranium production and transportation, et cetera. But the thing I wanted to ask Tracy is, you know, don't have secrets here. You haven't been on the show in, I think, about a year or so. Tell everybody else how to invest in uranium, not just Jim.
Well, so I don't want to. I don't want to say
you're not recommending people should do
if
it.
people want to invest in uranium. What would you do if you wanted to invest in uranium?
All right. So what I really like right now is junior miners in Canada and the United States.
Okay. There's uranium mines in the United States.
There are, believe it or not. And there's a particular company that I like that has literally zero debt right now and has just expanded and is looking pretty strong. So do your research.
Give us the company. We have a newsletter exemption. We're fine.
So
never mind.
DYDD.
Okay. Well, what was it again?
DYDD.
DYDD. Okay, that's going in our soon to launch newsletter.
I think junior miners are the way to go. I think some of the bigger miners, still good investments, but they've moved so much higher than junior miners. So I'm a big fan of junior miners in general, overall in uranium and in metals right now.
So I don't know if you saw Maria Bartiromo's interview with President Trump when he said, yeah, there's going to be pain. Scott Bessent said, yeah, there's going to be pain. You've mentioned that already. The recession, I believe, is coming. I believe it's somewhat of a foregone conclusion. Do you believe in the thesis, and this is going to go to both of you, because I think that if they are ushering in a recession, one of the things they want to do is force money out of the stock market into the bond market so they can refinance their $9 trillion of debt that's coming due in 2025, refinance that into lower rates. Do you think, are they that sophisticated that are thinking along those levels? Bobby, actually, I'm going to throw that question to you first.
Yeah, I think Bessent is. Good. And I think, honestly, this is the difference between this particular administration and the last one. Trump came in with a plan of exactly what he wanted to do and exactly who he thought he needed to do it. This is the thing I don't think people realize about this particular version of Trump. He's still arrogant. He still talks shit. He's still a troll. But he also knows that, you know, the former head of Exxon was not the right appointment. You know, he's actually taken time and gone and said, okay, these are the things I want to do. Who are the best people to do it? Besant has been very clear about what wants to happen. Remember, in the first administration, Trump had talked about how dumb they all were for not refinancing the debt at lower rates.
Who was his
And what do
Treasury
we have
Secretary
now?
in his first administration? I can't even remember.
God, I don't remember either.
Guy from Citibank. Do you remember, Tracy?
Who was what?
Who was Trump's Treasury Secretary in his first term?
His first term, well, he had Munchin, right?
Munchin, yeah, Munchin. From
Yeah,
no, he's from
Mnuchin,
Goldman.
that's-
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah.
But he came
Sorry.
in and
I was called Munchkin.
Munchkin is
Munchkin's
good.
fine.
We like Munchkin. We got two people that went ahead. Tim and Wedge both said Mnuchin before we could get it out. But no, he had the people. I think Tim actually said Munchkin.
I said Munchkin. That's what I thought.
She wants credit for Munchkin.
Yes, but no, he actually has the people that, you know, again, it's like Doge with Elon. Think of what you want about Elon, but about 2 or 3 weeks ago, I found a video of a young Elon saying what managers should do at Tesla, and it was honest. I retweeted it with a quote. The genius of Musk is this. It's not engineering. It's not coding. It's him saying to people, if you're coming to me and saying we need to hire 4 or 5 new managers, you're fired. Your honest job should be finding out how to streamline process. So that should be your work every single day. Every time you come to a meeting, you should be saying, we don't need this function anymore. There's a more efficient way to do it. And so he got the people that at least he believes are the right ones for the jobs he wants to achieve. And I think Besant is that. I don't think Trump thinks he has the ability to do it.
Tracy?
No, I agree. I think Besant is a good choice. He comes from the hedge fund world as well. And so this was a much better choice, much less slimier choice. Can I say that?
Remember the picture with Mnuchin and that blonde wife of his with all the money?
That was awesome.
You know, I think Besant is, you know, he knows the industry, he knows finance, he comes from that world, he's really intelligent, and I think this was a much better pick than sort of like a media person, which I consider Munchkin a little bit more of like that media kind of guy.
Okay, well, I hope we're coming dangerously close to insulting one of my good pals, Larry Kudlow. I hope that's not where you were going with that.
No, I was not. No. I'm not. That's a whole different area.
Whole different area. Barry, by the way, your comment, we agree with you 100%. We are team nuclear for sure. I'm going to deviate for 1 second away from markets too. Trump yesterday said, you know, he was talking about Ukraine declaring a ceasefire, and he said, you know, I'm going to talk to Vlad, or he said something like that. I think he says things just to yank the chain of the left, like acting like Vlad's his buddy. He does it on purpose, correct?
Oh, 100% he does. He knows exactly what bugs people, right? That's why you saw, I think, you know, him antagonizing Trudeau, I think was his like favorite pastime, right? Calling him governor, you know, and I just think that he likes doing that. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he just, you know, and that is just who his personality is. And so, you know,
he's a chain yanker, which I don't think the president should be a chain yanker, but I laugh my ass off every time he does it. So I am the hypocrite here. Bobby, the thing with Canada, I want to ask you, and we talked about this on our other show. So do you think when Donald Trump is taking a hard line in Canada, part of that is what happened in 2021 when that goddamn trucker strike revealed them to be the authoritarian socialists that they are, is in the back of Donald Trump saying, the hell with those guys. They are not instituting the proper way to govern capitalism, the one republic. What do you think, Bob?
I think that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way at all. I think that's very, very interesting. I mean, he doesn't necessarily, to your point, and I'm acting on this thought right now because I hadn't thought of it. To your point, he's kind of saying, well, they're not really an ally anyway.
Well, they're not. If they're socialists, they're not an ally. Right, Tracy, do you have any thoughts on this concept?
Well, I was living in Canada at the time. So
you were stuck, weren't you?
You know, it was not a pleasant experience, to be honest with you. And it was nothing that I ever expected Western country would do to its citizens. I mean, and I love Canada. I love Canadians. I love Canada. I love you guys. I love everybody in Canada. I had a
Tracy
great
loves everybody.
Government in Canada. We're talking about the government.
I had a great experience, except for Trudeau's government. Let's just put it that way.
I want to put up.
Yeah. But I think realistically speaking, and I have to say, believe it or not, and I know this gets glossed over, but I really do think it is a major problem with the fentanyl issue. And I don't know if anybody has read Sam Cooper's book, but if you haven't, I would highly suggest reading it. But it's a much bigger problem than the governments are making present. Nobody's really talking about it. But if you read some books, and I posted a couple on my stream that you should really read, but it's a huge problem. And I know that, the governments have said, well, we're, only X amount of fentanyl is, gone through the border. It's a way bigger, deeper problem than people even recognize. And it's not often talked about. And so really, I do think that it's mostly really about this issue.
I want to put up Tim's comment because
that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
I think it's a bigger issue than people think that it is, and that I do think there's a reason why he's so adamant about this issue.
So I want to put up Tim's comment because it's funny. Then I want to address what you just said. Tim said that where the hell is it? Mnuchin's wife was a lot hotter than Beston's husband. I just think that's funny. I'm sorry. I think
that is inappropriate and funny all at the same time.
Very funny.
So
actually, Tracy may not agree, but we'll see. The fentanyl thing. Somebody, I don't remember who it was, but somebody recently said that 20 years ago, you don't know anyone that OD'd. I mean, maybe you're a friend of a friend of a friend, or you heard about somebody. In today's day and age, we all know somebody. Okay. And I know somebody specifically, a younger brother of a friend of ours that OD'd from fentanyl. He went to California to meet some friends and party and never came back in a box. So like, it really, really is a very serious thing. I actually had a friend in high school that OD'd, but that was a whole other thing. That's because I grew up in the rough and tumble streets of the west side of Chicago. But that was a very common thing. So yeah, we all fought, we all shot each other. It was great. But no, it is serious, obviously, and it's much more serious than people take it. And somebody said to me, Trump with his tariffs, and I want you guys' comments on this, Tracy, first. Trump with his tariffs on Mexico and Canada, they're like, what about the USMCA? What's different between now and when the USMCA was passed? And I would say it's fentanyl. That was my answer to the person on X.
And I would agree with that. I mean, it's a huge issue. It's got progressively worse over, the last 10 years, particularly the last 4 years. And I just think it's much more serious than people are taking into account. And I know people have rattled off government figures. They've only gotten 1 kilo. Canada's doing everything it can for fentanyl. The problem goes much, much deeper, and the legs are much, much wider and the net is much, much wider than people think. Again, I encourage you to, I'll repost a couple books that I posted on really what's going on. And it involves the United States and it involves Mexico as well. It is a huge problem with a huge web. And so it's a very serious issue.
Bobby, what's the name of that bill that they passed in 2018 that Trump negotiated the trade deal, the
USMCA.
USMCA. Because I see the left freaking out and they keep saying, well, he's going after Canada. It's the bill that he negotiated. I don't give a shit. It was 7 years ago. Even if you took the fentanyl piece out of it, it could easily just be that, that was an incremental step, and now we're ready for the next incremental step.
It's up for renegotiation next year, too.
Up for renegotiation.
So he could be posturing for that.
Yeah, it's not like he's being hypocritical. It's literally was 7 years ago. That it was an asinine argument by them. Let's talk about tariffs real quick. We had Tony Nash, our mutual buddy, on yesterday. He thinks the tariffs are.
Tony.
What's that?
I love Tony. There's my private.
I used to love Tony until he laughed at how old Bobby and I were on the show. He asked us when we graduated from college. And when we, from high school, and when we told him, he ridiculed us incessantly for about.
By the way, real quick, Jimmy, before you go on, that's 2 guests in 2 days that are really ridiculing us because Tracy's trolling us about how many more people are watching her than are watching you and I. She's got like 4,000 people watching, and you have like close to 650, and I've got a little over 100. So she's trolling us on that. So for the last 2 days, our guests are talking shit, and I love it.
Right. So what did we do to deserve this? We're nothing but nice. Anyway, right? So Tony contends that the tariffs are not going to be that big a deal, and that China's used to this kind of shit. It'll be about 3 months of price hike, and then all of a sudden China will start subsidizing, which they've done literally for thousands and thousands of years. China, being the world's exporter, began in ancient Roman times. Pliny the Elder complained about how much money of the Roman Empire was going to China for silk. They are used to this shit. Will they then start subsidizing? And Donald Trump, when he said that other countries will pay it, he wasn't 100% wrong, right?
Oh, China
wrong. No,
China
go ahead.
So that's what China's known for. They subsidize everything, so they'll do it again. I mean, I think that's not even a question.
So, but okay, good. So then the China and the Canada and Mexico thing. Do we all now think what percentage of it's fentanyl? What percentage of it is reciprocal tariffs that they had in place? Do you think this is a 50-50 shot right now, Tracy?
I would say that the media is portraying it more as it's more of a 75 reciprocal, 25 fentanyl. I think it's the other way around in the administration's mind.
The thing that I don't like about it is that during the election, during the campaign, they didn't really talk much about fentanyl. It came out of press conferences like they're treating us unfairly and fentanyl. And by the way, I think that's a great reason to come down hard on both of our bordering countries. But it just seemed like it just popped out of his head at the moment.
I think that it didn't. Honestly, I think that that's just how the media portrayed it.
Okay, more good.
So what they were actually thinking. Because if you read beyond just what mainstream media was telling you, and you looked at, fentanyl was mentioned over and over and over again by their PR people. And Trump mentioned it over again. It just wasn't, mainstream media just didn't pick up on it. X didn't pick up on it, but it was out there because I was specifically looking for that.
I want to keep up this tradition of guests making fun of us. So if there's any of our future guests watching this, I want you to definitely make fun of us. I want to say real quick, Claudia Sheinbaum, love that name for a president.
For the president of Mexico, it's just so funny.
My favorite thing. She's put out a statement this morning that she's very confident that they don't have to do retaliatory tariffs on the U.S. because Mexico, according to her, doesn't have any tariffs on U.S. products, and therefore she feels she can negotiate. That was something that she said this morning. So, and then you could just, if that is actually the case, I didn't look it up to see, but if that is actually the case, then yeah, she will have success, and it will be more about fentanyl. But I want to go rapid fire on comments because we had a few as we were talking there. First of all, Widge says, cartels sent the fentanyl to kill our youth and then send in the people to replace them. What a business. That's a good comment. Yeah. Then Tim says, I remember listening to a podcast with Kyle Bass and General Spalding, another name that's just funny ever since
Caddyshack.
Yeah. Spalding is stationed in China. He said is a coordinated effort in China to kill young Americans. Mainstream media is absent. We know that. And then Fadi Gaman, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I wonder if Trump would be less aggressive toward a conservative Canadian government.
That's my point.
He wouldn't have to be as aggressive as he is if it was a conservative government. Then there's one more from Fatty. Just going to call it Fatty because I don't know what it is. The sanctimony from Canadians has been palpable since my student days. Foreign travelers always had Canadian flags.
So what do you make of that?
I have relatives in Toronto. I've been to Toronto multiple times. They anytime they say they want to visit, they say, no, let us come there. Now, I don't know if that's because I embarrass them. That's highly likely. I'm walking in there going, hey, yo, where are we going to drink? And so they come down here. They say it's just they enjoy being down here. They spend money. They said things are cheaper down here. Life is better down here. I have an older cousin who waited 5 years for simple ear implants. She literally sat deaf for 5 years waiting for Canadian healthcare to give her these simple implants that would cure her particular condition. So I don't know.
Okay, let's do a couple things before we close. We got about 2 minutes left. So you look out through 2025, and this question is going to be to both of you. Where would you rather be? U.S. equities, commodities, somewhere else, crude oil names? What are you doing with your money, Tracy Schuchart?
I like commodities right now. I think we're going to see a rotation out of equities, which we are seeing, back into commodities after this initial, sell everything because you're getting a margin call, right? Yeah. I really like commodities going forward. Do I think oil's the best place to be? I think oil's going to be boring. I don't think that, I think you're going to sit in it. I think you're going to sit in it. And if you want to sit in it and go nowhere and find a name with a good dividend, that's great. But, I don't think it's necessarily, don't hate me, you guys. I don't think that it's going to be a very boring, I know I just think it's going to be a very, very boring trade, which is fine. You find a company that has a huge dividend. There are many out there that have great dividends. You can sit in, maybe it doesn't go anywhere, but you're paid on your positions. That's a good thing. I just think oil, at least for the next couple of years, is going to be kind of boring, barring any, unforeseen geopolitical events, obviously. But I think metals look really interesting. I love silver. I love platinum group metals. I love, I still like uranium. I think you're going to have to pick and choose there, but I think they're going to do really well. So I definitely really like the commodity sector right now. And these are things that, beyond obviously everything that, like gold that's already run, which I still love gold, but I'm saying
it's run quite a bit, right?
If you want something that maybe is lagging a little bit. And I think junior miners, again, in say platinum group metals, in silver, I think are going to start doing really well, as long as, like for silver, for example, if we can, hold above that 32 area for a significant amount of time, you're going to see junior miners outperform and do really well that have been lagging other miners.
Bobby, I want to add something to the question for you, because you for 3 months have been saying you expected a 15 to 30% drop in the stock market, and then that would represent a generational buying opportunity. So in the NASDAQ, we've had a 15%, in the S&P, we've had 11. Now you throw in the fact, and you said that for months, and this is getting rid of any of the technical analysis that you and Mike do. Does the fact that for 3 months' time, we traded in a pretty sideways correction before we faked our way up to the upside and then cratered, does the 3 months of sideways take away some of the depth of the correction in your mind and maybe make it closer to that 15? And if you look at the NASDAQ, you can say, we're there yet?
So the short answer is yes, but it really, I've said this over and over again. I never buy dips in anything. I never sell rallies when I want to be short something. Even those sell orders that I have above in crude oil, there's a patterned reason for it. The reason I said 15 to 30%, this is the analogy I always use. If I want to get on a train headed north, I don't get in one headed south and wait for it to pull into the station and turn around. Right. Okay. I wait for a northbound train to come. So, because we've already had the 15% drop in the NASDAQ, I'm going to call myself right. And that's the only joy I get out of it. I don't get any money out of it yet.
Because it's not time to buy it yet.
It's not time to buy it yet. So
and you talked about this on Mike Drop Markets podcast the last time I had you on, which was
when I did the show, I mentioned it there. I've gotten a lot of crap for it, to be honest. But Jimmy, to answer your question, the sideways consolidation made me believe more that the down move was coming, the sideways
Because we
correction.
couldn't muster the up move is what you're
Because
saying.
it couldn't muster the up move even with all that was happening. So when you talk about, to your first question that Tracy just answered, I am still in the long in gold that I got in November of 2022. But I've been trading in and out of it, keeping a core long position. I'm going to be watching the Fed on this right now. CME Fed Watch Tool has 4 rate cuts priced in through 2026. That says stay long gold, right, Tracy? Am I wrong about that?
Absolutely. And isn't that's such a switch from 2 months ago? I feel like the markets are so crazy with these rate cuts, right?
Yeah.
This is kind of like 2023 when we went from like 0 to 6,
Mhm.
you know, after that December meeting. And then now we went from 0 to 4. In just
So for our CME, Bobby and I do a lot of work for the CME. So please, you guys, turn this off right now, because I'm about to say something about the Fed Watch Tool and the Fed Funds market. Speaking with, they have been comically wrong.
Yeah.
Yes.
I visit it every day.
I love the CME. I love the CME. But
no, I mean, so the Fed Watch Tool, it's very similar to the Atlanta Fed GDP now. I mean, it moves and then it moves back. It kind of corrects itself. Yeah. But I do think, Jimmy, that when you say, what am I doing with my money? I'm in gold, I'm in cash, I'm in commodities in a very small way. And I can't wait to buy this full dip when it's over.
And by the way, the beauty of cash,
multi-generational buy.
Right. For much of our adult life, being in cash meant dry powder, waiting with 0% interest rates. Now that cash is earning 4.5%. That is a far cry from just sitting there idle. Tracy, you got any last words? Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, I got a last question for Tracy, and then she can finish her answer. It's from Tim again, who is a sort of a neighbor of yours now, Tracy. And he's a good friend of mine. But he says, I agree with Bobby. I just wanted to get that part out, because me and Tim actually disagree a lot. Does Tracy think the lows are in on the major indices?
No, I think I feel like we haven't had that capitulation moment yet. I know that's not a technical indicator and that means nothing, but
I don't disagree with you.
But how the market is reacting and how I've been through several capitulatory markets.
That's not a word. Is that really a word?
Now I just made it up, dude.
It's a great word.
Word now.
Yeah. The word now, I made it up.
I agree. Tell everybody where to find you, just so you know. The astronauts for Falcon just are driving to the pad to go save the space station, guys. And I can't wait until the left starts talking about how Elon is probably getting paid for doing that, or I don't know, whatever.
Tracy, where can they find you?
All right, so big news, you guys. I'm now senior economist for Ninja Trader Live, which means starting Monday, I'm going to be on with Anthony Crudelli and Jim
Cagnina.
You guys, your Italian names, I just can't think of. Can't pronounce any of your last names, but so we're going to be on every morning. I will be covering macro markets of the overnight, what you missed, and what may be affecting markets for that day. So really excited about that. And then, of course, Hill Tower Resource Advisors, my research and portfolio allocation firm.
Fantastic.
Yeah, check that out. That's a really solid team at Ninja Trader Live there. That's going to be
good. We have
so
many more guests coming in. It's going to be awesome. And of course, we'll want both of you on as well.
Of course. That's what we want. We want
happy to do it.
But anyway, thank you guys for being here. Tracy, when Bobby, as always, thank you guys for watching. Thanks for all the support, the DMs. Remember what Bobby and I's mission is. We were in legacy media for 25 years each. Every day in legacy media, we had to bend to the whims of overzealous producers or sponsors. There's what you could say, what you couldn't say. It's a bullshit system. This is a much better system. We might be wrong, but we say exactly what we see and we're honest about it. And I'm glad you guys are part of it. And the fact that it's taken off like it has is humbling to us. Thank you very much. This is Tradiers, the Trader's Edge. I'm Jim Iuorio. That's Bob Iaccino. That's Tracy Schuchart. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
You know how the financial world goes. Here comes the buzzkill. Please make sure to take some time to read this boring disclaimer. We will owe you one.